It's a critical today, not just in India, but around the world, after very promising news from Oxford University of how effective the Oxford vaccine candidate is in the fight against COVID-19. It's a drug being produced by AstraZeneca, but it's going to be manufactured over here in India in huge numbers by the Serum Institute of India. The full efficacy of the drug is seen to be as much as 90% depending on the dosage which is given. And joining us now to tell us about the progress which has been made on this very important day, Adar Poonawalla. He's the CEO of the Serum Institute. Great to speak to you again, Adar. A couple of weeks back, you were waiting in a sense for more news to emerge from Oxford. That news has come today that in certain conditions this drug, which you are set to manufacture in India, could be 90% effective. What are those conditions in which it would be 90% effective?
So Vishnu, I think, whether a vaccine is 60 or 70%, 90%, at this stage where only a few thousand people in these phase 3 trials, have shown this kind of efficacy result, I would not want to, label the vaccine to be at that level at this stage, because even though, yes, we are showing 90% efficacy with a half dose and then followed by a full dose, which sounds a bit peculiar, that why is that giving you a much better result? That is how it is, and as the days go on, we'll probably get an explanation for that. So indeed, that's good news. But what I mean to say is that unless hundreds of millions of people get the vaccine all over the world in different regions, and you see the disease burden in that region actually going down, like we've seen for pneumonia vaccines, measles vaccines, pentavalent vaccines, etc., you can't really say a vaccine is effective up to a certain level until you are able to see that data. And of course, that will come about in the next 1 or 2 years. But initially, having said that, there's a lot of excitement, whether it's Moderna's vaccine, Pfizer's vaccine, AstraZeneca, Oxford vaccine, and others, that at least, the fear was initially, will any of these new vaccines being developed within a year, will they even have 50, 60% efficacy? So, we're way beyond that benchmark, and that's great because, that's what you need to get ahead of the pandemic, which is, stopped us in all these countries.
Adar, it's my understanding that the first vaccine triggers an immune response, which is why the second dose is more effective, taking you up potentially to 90%. Is that some of the science behind it?
Well, it's too soon to say exactly what the reasons are behind this finding. And I do believe as we get more data and more people are vaccinated with this vaccine, maybe at the end, in the next few months, when more data is available, we'll see a higher efficacy coming about, closer to 90%, in everybody. But again, it's too soon to say that. This is the data that we have today. It's certainly better than what we expected it to be. Or the world expected it to be, because, initially, if you're trying to make a vaccine very quickly, you don't know if it's going to be more than 50 or 60% effective.
So, again, how much longer before the phase 3 trial results are unveiled in the United Kingdom?
So I'll answer that in two parts. You've already got this data point with which I think they're all going to now apply for the emergency use licensure in the UK, and we've tied up, of course, with the MHRA, and the Drug Controller's Office here is working with them to get an exchange of that data so that we can also apply for the same over here. Coming to your point of when will the final licensure come, where, it'll be available to the general public, I would say another 2 to 3 months. But before that, the good news is, based on this result, based on the data we have in India, we can expect within the next 1 month, we can try to get an emergency use licensure done even in India, of course, based on what the Drug Controller of India deems fit in terms of safety and efficacy for the people.
So how soon would you believe you'd be in a position to ask for emergency usage permissions here in India based on what's being done in the UK? A couple of weeks?
I think
when would you apply?
That's a good guess. Once the UK MHRA grants it, and we're trying to get the data being shared between the two regulators at the same time, we're probably talking about another 2 to 3 weeks. That's why I'd always mentioned and targeted for end of the year. Unless there's any major hiccup, we feel confident to be on that on track. And,
Okay.
But let me just clarify that the emergency use licensure, both in the UK and here, will mean that you can only give it to a limited scope. You know, the vulnerable, the healthcare workers, the elderly. So at least you take care of that population, which is highest at risk. And then, as I said, 2 or 3 months later for the general public.
How soon would you be in a position, and in terms of numbers of doses, to roll that out to doctors, paramedics, cleaners, hospital staff, frontline people? How soon can you have it out to every part of the country, just for them?
No, so as I said, by January, we should have 100 million doses minimum, because we've already made 40 million doses, and if not more, by January. So January, February, we can start rolling out hundreds of millions of doses, because the target set by the government of India and all the people that we've been talking to, and they've also publicly announced that they are looking at 300 to 400 million doses by July 2021. Of course, we don't know if they're going to buy all of that from us. Maybe they'll get a bit of that from Pfizer and other companies, Moderna even. But again, with the pricing that they've set, I don't know if it would be possible for us to be able to buy those vaccines, whether it's India or most other countries in the world as well. So that's why at the moment, there's a lot of interest and excitement that we're able to provide this vaccine at a very low price. I didn't want to come down in slabs. I wanted to offer the best possible price, even if that meant we wouldn't make a lot of profit at all, in fact, with the initial doses that we roll out, because this price is normally given when you reach hundreds of millions of doses because of the economies of scale. Whereas the other companies have chosen probably to initially take a high price, and then as volumes go up, we hope that they would bring down their price.
And what is the price for you?
So as we've said, we're putting an MRP of 1,000 rupees. In the private market, we'll sell it at 500 to 600 rupees, giving another couple of hundred rupees to the distributors and others to be able to make their margins so that they can really give the product to everybody. But to the government of India, they will be buying it at 250 rupees or less, which is roughly $3 a dose, because of the volumes that they'll be buying it at. And, that's what we want to contribute to our country, for 90% of our volumes, because most of that 90% is what's going to go to the government of India, and maybe 10% to the private market at the higher price. So that's how we're doing it, so that, even the government can manage its huge budgets that are required, for the population that we have. And of course, as you know, it's a 2-dose vaccine. So we've tried our best at Serum to give the absolute lowest price, at least during the pandemic period, to the government of India.
And is that price 250 rupees per dose, or is it collectively?
Per dose.
It's per dose. So 500 rupees.
Everything I've said is per dose.
Everything you've said is per dose. And that 10% that you said, which might be available outside what you supply the government, would that be available from day one, or would that only be available after doctors, medical staff, frontline workers, they are dealt with?
Correct. So as I said, that will tie in with the permissions in February, March, which will probably come for a full and final licensure. So, till March, I don't think the general public would be able to get it very easily. They would have to go to the government points and areas where it's being distributed. And if they're eligible, then they'll get it from the government. And if not, then they'll just have to wait till March, because that's the priority in which not only do we want to vaccinate our most vulnerable, but also in terms of the regulatory pathway, that's how much time it will take. So both will come together, in the next 3 months. But, we're hoping for this emergency use licensure so that by end of December, January, we can start rolling out some quantities.
And what about the phase 3 trials taking place here in India now? The government wants that data as well. So, and yet they are accepting data, obviously, from whatever happens in the United Kingdom. So is it just going to take more time as they analyze all of this?
No, so that's also going on well, because everybody by the 14th or 15th of December, or even sooner than that, will have received the second dose in India for the entire enrollment that we've done, which means we will have some safety and some immunogenicity data for those. Of course, the idea is that the question would be, why is that not the end of the trial? Because there's usually a 2-3 month and 6-month follow-up after any trial, to monitor safety and efficacy. So as long as we have that interim data of having given the second dose and then having waited a few days to see what the response is from the human beings, that's good enough. And that combined with the UK MHRA data approval as well will be what the Indian regulator will have to weigh up and then see whether it's worthy of an Indian licensure by the end of December.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the drug as well. It works well among senior citizens, right?
Yes, that's the good news.
What is the age group? So above 55, right? And 55 to 69 was it, and then above 70. It's all good news there, right?
Yeah. So, anyone from the age of 18 upwards. So there have been different age groups, of course, but I think it goes all the way up to 90. So it's safe, to even go up to that age group.
What about
it's
children?
Only that below 18
yeah.
is something which will be tested, and we'll have to go very carefully on that, because traditionally for all vaccines and new drugs, you first prove safety, long-term safety, even in adults, before going into children, which is the right way to go about anything. But the good news, of course, is that we all know that it's not so bad for the younger population, and therefore, it might not be so bad for them to wait another few months, and rightly so, for the safety to be proven in additional studies that we're going to do both in India and abroad to prove that it is perfectly safe in children, because you don't want to do something hasty there either.
So those beneath the age of 18 will not be getting their drugs, this vaccine from March onwards or whenever it is. It would be a few months later by when there would be a further regulatory process.
Yeah, I think, both Oxford and AstraZeneca and other vaccine developers for that matter will have to do subsequent studies in the below 18 age group, because that's, the usual way, normal way that everybody goes about proving the efficacy and safety in adults first. So I would say probably end of next year is when we could probably look at, giving it to children or below the age of 18.
There's a lot which has been written about the drug itself, the fact that it's based a lot on science, which you have, the Serum Institute has worked on a lot in the past, as opposed to say Moderna and Pfizer, which have a different science involved, mRNA or whatever it is. Could you tell our viewers the basic difference in the science and why that's important?
Well, the messenger RNA technology is a great technology, but it's experimental in the sense that no vaccine on this planet before COVID vaccines have been developed have ever succeeded in giving a good response using messenger RNA technology. Whilst innovation is great and good, I've always said during a pandemic, we need to keep things simple and stick to proven technologies, proven manufacturing processes, because if you want to ramp up and scale up very quickly, you don't want to be reinventing the wheel somewhere. But having said that, it's a great achievement to have even these vaccines. Stability is always an issue because of the cold chain refrigeration conditions that we all know about with messenger RNA. So there are always pluses and minuses. As you've seen the excellent efficacy results with the vaccine, it's 90%, maybe even higher later on. So these are the pros and cons using different technologies and processes. But we need to keep in mind, when you make new vaccines, are they going to be manageable in terms of logistics? Are they going to be affordable and have long-term protection? We don't know how many months or years these new technologies can protect you for, because there just isn't enough data that we can see, having used this technology in the past. Whereas if you look at the chimp adenovirus or other live attenuated vaccines, killed vaccines, spike protein vaccines, there's enough data to show how it's going to react, what kind of protection it will give, the safety profile. Even if you look at the Oxford AstraZeneca product, it's been proven the technology platform is improved for the Ebola vaccine and other things they've used it for. So that was always, when you asked me earlier on also, why did we partner with them so early, is because we knew that if anything, this vaccine platform is one of the safest out there, having time tested, proven in the past. So these are the sort of differences between all these technologies and processes.
Well, Adar, I think at the end of this interview, one has to say that it's time to start counting the days because, you know, we've been talking about months, then weeks, and when will the results come and will it work? I think those answers are now coming in fairly fast and furious. I think it's just going to be another couple of months. That seems clear. People have waited so long. Adar Poonawalla, thanks very much for being with us this evening.